students, and welcome to the video for transitive verbs. We have been talking about verbs now for a couple of weeks, and we've talked about tenses, past, present, future. We've talked about perfect tenses, but now we're going to get into some of the very specific verbs and the way they work in a sentence. So transitive verbs, there are going to be three kinds of verbs that we talk about. Transitive verbs, linking verbs, and intransitive verbs. And sometime over the next week or so, we will hit on all of those. And it's really important that you recognize the difference. Transitive verbs, I think, are the easiest ones to recognize. So let's go ahead and jump in. You should be taking notes. So there's a worksheet that you're going to do after you watch the video. So you can either take notes on the back of that paper. That actually is probably the best solution. You can take notes on a Google Doc, or you can take notes just on a scrap sheet of paper. Also, I will leave the PowerPoint video up so you can check this information later. So let's go ahead to the next slide. And a transitive verb passes its action to a noun or pronoun in the sentence. Now, I know that probably doesn't make much sense, but we're going to look at sentences in a minute. So a transitive verb kind of has something happening at the end of the sentence. And if you think about a baseball player or Dawkins pitching his baseballs last week, there's a straight line shooting that ball right up to home plate. And so it's the same thing with our transitive verb. It is passing action down the sentence, straight line, to a word that comes a little later. It can be a noun or a pronoun. It's usually passing its action onto what is called a direct object. We're going to look at that. You've learned those a little bit, but we're going to work on them a little bit more. A transitive verb with a direct object may also have an indirect object. So in order to have an indirect object, you do have to have a direct object. So a transitive verb can have both of those, but you got to have the direct object first. And a transitive verb may pass its action back to the subject, but we're not going to look at that today. Most of the time, the word getting the action of the verb is going to be at the end of a sentence, but it can be at the beginning. Okay, I like to describe transitive verbs as verbs where you see the action in your head most of the time. So words like is, are, was, were are usually linking verbs, and you can't see that action in your head. But words like sing, walk, talk, you can see that action happening in your head. And so it is pretty safe to assume that words that you can see the action happening in your head are likely going to be transitive verbs. Not all the time, not 100%, but many, many times. So think, stop and think. Can I see this happening in my head? The boy threw the ball. Yeah, I can see him throwing the ball. Or the mouse ate the cheese. I can see the mouse doing that. Those are transitive verbs. You can see the action in your head. So that's my own definition, and I will often ask you, well, can you see that action in your head? One of the things that we have to remember is that with a transitive verb, we are likely to have a direct object. So we've been asking a couple of questions about our sentences, and so if we look at this sentence, Mom baked a cake, we would ask the first question, who or what is this about? It's about Mom. What is Mom doing? Baked. Mom baked. But then if we can go further and we can answer Mom baked what? Then we have a direct object. Now, it could be Mom baked who or what? Hopefully she's not baking any who's. But if we have something that can answer that what question, then we probably have a direct object. So that is the test is to ask that last question. I want to show you how we diagram our direct objects. So this sentence, it's going to have two verbs. Lot chose the plains and pitched his tent. So who or what is this about? It's about Lot. What did Lot do? He chose what? The plains, and pitched what? His tent. So in order to diagram a direct object, we put a line up and down. It ends, unlike the verb, this one keeps going. This one ends right here. So that's how we diagram a direct object. All right, here are a couple of sentences that include the indirect object. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how the indirect object is diagrammed. And that will kind of complete that section for us. We have not done this in our little diagram books yet, but we will. So the first one is Father gave the boys a list. And so in that sentence, Father gave what? Father gave the list. But right before list comes some information about who received it. And if we have the who received part in there, that's the indirect object question. And it needs to come in your diagram. Father gave the boys a list. Father gave, now here's the boys, and then list. You still want it in the same order. And notice that our indirect objects come off of our verbs. And that is a pretty hard and fast rule. You're not going to usually see anything different from that unless you have a really complex sentence and then lines going everywhere. It might get confusing on some of these. The next one, the girls made father and mother gifts. So girls, what did they do? Made gift. I said gifts, but it should be gift. The girls made father and mother a gift, probably. We don't have the article adjectives in here, but we'll assume that. So here's how you do a compound indirect object, and here's your direct object. The last one, mother prepared the family a meal. Don't mistake this and say mother prepared a family meal. Then family would come down off of meal as an adjective. But in this case, it's mother prepared the family a meal. Mother prepared what? A meal. Mother prepared who? The meal for who or whom? And it's family. All right. Now, you can change who receives the action of the verb. That's what I talked about a little bit earlier. That sometimes that direct object word can come earlier in the sentence. A to be verb. So instead of saying mom baked dad a cake, cake is receiving the action. But if I say the cake was being baked by mom, that actually still means that the cake receives the action and it's still being baked. It's a whole different sentence. This is called passive writing. I'm only showing you this just to show it because we're not going to do any practices with these. But instead of the direct object coming later in the sentence, it's come here earlier. And it's not a direct object anymore. It actually turns into the subject. Very confusing. Let's skip through that. All right. On your own paper, what I would like for you to do is to find the transitive verb in each of the sentences, then find the direct object. So you can actually just, again, use a scrap sheet of paper or your notes. And I want you don't even have to rewrite the sentence. All I want you to do is say, okay, what's the transitive verb here? It's ate. So you're going to put ate in number 1. And then you're going to say, what is the direct object? Worms. So all you're doing is giving me the two words, the transitive verb and the direct object. If it helps you to write the sentences, it's fine to do that. If it helps you to label them, put ate in the transitive verb or put worms and write do beside it, you can do that. So I'm going to give you, I want you to hit pause, and then we will go through these. So I'm going to, when you're ready to come back, then hit play again and come back. Okay, if you are back, I assume that you have finished these. So I'm going to run through these really quickly and tell you what the transitive verb is and the direct object so you can check your own work. I do want you to turn all this in just so that I can see that you actually did make an effort. So in the first one, I've already said it is ate is the transitive. We can see that action. What did he eat? Worms. Next sentence, the teacher taught a lesson in the cafeteria. So who or what is it about? Teacher. What did the teacher do? Taught. And I can see the teacher teaching. Taught what? Taught a lesson. So I have taught and lesson for number 2. For number 3, my dog ate 2 candy bars last night, which is kind of sort of a true story. Dog is the subject. What did the dog do? Ate. Ate what? Bars. Just bars, because candy's going to be an adjective. Number 4, Jethro shoveled the snow in the driveway. Who or what's it about? Jethro. What did Jethro do? Shoveled. Shoveled what? Snow. So shoveled and snow. Number 5, our transitive verb is ordered. What did we order? Hamburgers and French fries. So you have 2. You have a compound. Hamburgers and French fries. Dawn completed her project. So completed. I could see her sitting at a desk completed what project? The cow ate the grass in the field. Ate. Again, we've had a couple of ate. Ate what? Ate grass. The bearded dragon enjoyed the crickets. Enjoyed, we could see her enjoying if she's going cray-cray over them. Enjoyed what? The crickets. The soldier cleaned the guns before battle. Cleaned and cleaned what? Guns. And Joy sang a beautiful song. Sang, we can see her doing that. Sang what? Song. So hopefully you got most of those. You're going to move on now to the worksheet that I've provided for you. You're going to do a little bit more practice and diagram a few of these transitive verbs with their direct objects. And tomorrow I will go over any questions that you may have.